Man, these are good. I'm telling you, not like organic pistachios. You know, as a prepper and survivalist, it pays to have a lot of nuts. It can help out. Boy, I got nuts for days. Yeah. All right. So, on to the serious part of all this. Okay, aloha. I'm here to get you a little bit more familiar with who I am, because, you know, whenever I'm watching a survival channel on YouTube or something, I'm like, well, who the hell is this guy? And what the hell is, you know? So, I'm going to give you the rundown on all that. So I've written a little essay type thing, which is something I do. I'm always writing essays and writing stuff. So I figured I'd read this one instead of just posting it. And so this is the first episode of Surviving Like a King, the introduction, the beginning, and me, of course, I'm Ijut King, right? So there you go, a king. It's spelled Ijut, a king, right? Okay, so aloha. I am Ijut King from Hana, Maui. I feel it is important to introduce myself at the beginning of my series of survival, prepping, and shit hits the fan related videos. As far as survival, prepping, and shit hit the fan issues go, I belong to another number of groups on MeWe on these subjects, and I highly recommend you, the viewer, are seeing the need for survival and preparation to join MeWe and, you know, look up some of these groups. This is a good way for you to get prepared. A lot of times you might know a lot of things, but you got a question and you just need to ask somebody, or you have an idea and you just want to ask somebody, and these groups really help out. Now, as far as these groups go, I have been pretty active in them for the last year or so, since Facebook booted millions of users from their platform. So right around October of 2020, Facebook started booting tons of people. And that's right around the time that MeWe took off. Now, MeWe is pretty nice. It's a lot more respectful, a lot more under control than Facebook was, which is, you know, a good thing and a bad thing. For survival purposes, it's a good thing. People are generally focused on survival issues. Unfortunately, it turns into a political shit show, and people are always posting political crap that really doesn't matter at this point in the game. We're not getting out of this with these problems that politicians have caused by electing new politicians. It's just not going to work. Okay, so allow me to... okay, hold on. Where'd that go? Oh, man. Here we go. So, allow me to introduce myself with some credentials for my survival and prepping. I was born in Wisconsin and spent much of my childhood in the woods and marshes, attempting to recreate what I read in books about Native American life. So I'd, you know, start building a teepee and not have the hide to finish it or shit like that, you know, stuff like that. Stuff kids do. Starting fires, building fire pits, picking berries, stuff like that. Well, I didn't have too much success using Native American methods. I did become quite adept at surviving in the cold of the north using modern technology, that is using Gore-Tex clothing, layering modern clothing, using modern boots, and building, you know, snow structures. You build an igloo out in the woods. You can party out there all night with your friends, go get some beers, whatever. I got pretty good at that sort of thing. I also learned different properties of the different trees, which trees were good for what. Of course, there's berries and plants that are edible, and I learned about all that. Before I left Wisconsin, I had the privilege of studying college-level chemistry and physics at my high school, so I was taking college courses in chemistry during high school. This proved to be very helpful as time went on, because I went, after high school, I joined the U.S. Navy. In the U.S. Navy, I was a gas turbine engineer. A gas turbine is just a jet that doesn't leave the ground or the surface of the earth. Jet engines fly through the air, so that's the only real difference. The casing on a jet engine is usually thinner to save weight, and other than that, the mechanics behind it are all the same. The Navy, like most of the military, teaches both self-sufficiency and teamwork, and these are both useful survival skills. I work extensively with potable water and potable water control and treatment. Okay, so on the ships we would take seawater and distill it, and I would purify it. We'd purify it by flash distillation, and then we'd treat it with some bromine to keep it nice and safe and in the tanks and blah, blah, blah. Pretty simple stuff really, but technical too, and I've done it. Okay. I've also worked extensively with fluid system mechanics. This is to say, worked a lot with pumps, oils, hydraulics, and electrical power generation. So we had the turbines generated electrical power for the ships. So when it comes to generators and that sort of thing, I'm pretty good with it. I was the oil king and the water king on my first ship. So another reason why I get to use king in my name. And also maintained all of the engineering logs. I developed the U.S. Navy's first electronic fuel and water report, which led to the Navy using electronic fuel and water reports throughout the entire fleet. So I was the first one that did that. If you were in the Navy and you've used an electronic fuel and water report, I'm the guy that started that. Hey, all right. All in all, military experience is obviously survival and prepping related, as those are two major functions of the military, just getting the stores in the ship, knowing how to store those stores, knowing how to keep those stores properly stowed away and fresh and usable. These are all things that you do in the military. After the Navy, I worked as a computer programmer and a gas turbine engineer for Caterpillar, made pretty big bucks doing it. I did not care for this private sector work though. After a few years, I left Caterpillar for various reasons. Basically, it just sucked. I mean, sure, I had tons of money, but I never had any time to enjoy it. So I was like, okay, this is not a good deal. I looked around at the other guys that had been working in the job field that I had been working in. They've been there 20 years, didn't know their kids' names, been through 5 wives, just lives were a mess. It just wasn't worth it. Anyway, my work with Caterpillar was on the vital energy infrastructure of the United States, of the Western U.S. primarily. So if you live anywhere in the Western U.S. from California to Colorado and everywhere in between, your gas and electricity is something that I had a part in providing. After leaving Caterpillar, I did join the LDS Church, which I like for many reasons, one of which is that being prepared is part of the faith. So I've also had considerable success with music and was offered a record deal from Capitol Records when I was playing music with Teddy Horton, who was Willie Nelson's first drummer. He's played with Johnny Cash, Bobby Gentry, and many others. You've heard him on the radio. I turned down the deal because they wanted me to rewrite my lyrics, and I just was going to get a crappy deal. I wasn't really going to get paid much. They get to keep all the money. All I got to do, would have gotten to do, is go on the road and play shows. Whoop-de-doo. I wanted my money. Anyway, they didn't want to give it to me, and they wanted me to change the song. So I was just like, no, this is too screwball. So I didn't do that. But I am an able musician, to say the least. And music does have a lot more to do with survival than most people think. The first thing they do when you get to the military is teach you to do a war dance in time with a military song. This is to say they have you march according to cadence. So that's music right there, actually. And that's exactly why I prize it in survival type things and as a practice. Another reason is because if you just play guitar or harmonica or anything besides watch TV, you're way ahead of everybody else. It's an indirect way of preparing yourself because you can achieve perfection through music. You have to achieve perfection through music if you're going to play the music right. So therefore, it gets all these notions of, oh, I'm going to make mistakes and blah, 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 that crap out of your head, because that's a bunch of BS, actually. All right. Now, after leaving Caterpillar, then I eventually went on to use my GI Bill in Las Vegas, majoring in chemistry and also in literature. So there's that. Most recently, I've lived in Hana, which is the video that I posted prior to posting this video, is the video of me starring in a movie pilot that was supposed to be a movie that would have benefited the Hawaiian sovereignty. The movie never got funded, but I made the pilot and I got my name, iJet King, put into that movie. And for what it's worth, living in Hana is basically survival. Hawaii is very expensive if you're going to go to the store for everything, and it's very cheap if you know how to live off the land. But living off the land there, as easy as it is to do, is still not that easy, and you still need to learn a lot of things in order to be able to do it, especially when you're doing it the way we were doing it, which is we were using not just ancient Hawaiian methods of surviving, but we were also using modern things like cars and generators and, solar panels and this sort of thing. So you had to have quite an extensive skill set in order to be able to pull it off. And having done that and actually having lived off the grid for years and years and not having to go to a grocery store or a hardware store or a box store of any kind, yeah, I've done that. I did that for years. So that's another one of my credentials. And as I also mentioned, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka a Mormon. I'm definitely not the most churchy member. In fact, I'm more of what we call a Jack Mormon, so I pretty much stay on the outskirts of the whole thing. Although I do believe, and there's many good things you can take from the LDS religion. Like I say, basically, it's a religion for preppers. I mean, it's part of the faith. You get prepared. You be prepared for disasters. You be prepared for the end days, the latter days. It's in the name. So there's that. But there are also other things, and I'll get into that in a minute, but I don't want to sound like I'm trying to push this on anybody, but I am going to say that it is a very viable survival tactic to join the LDS church. You're going to be around people that know what to do. They're going to be around people that have experience with prepping. You're going to have a group of people to coordinate with once shit hits the fan. And these are all very big survival things. But I'm going to go right on to say that I'm sure that won't appeal to everyone by a long shot. So let's get past that suggestion. And let me just suggest for survival purposes that you get some sort of a church or some sort of a faith under your belt. If you look on a timeline, about 150 years ago, the industrialization of the world really started taking hold. And at the same time, that's about the same time that religion started losing its appeal to people. Now, this is because religion is a big pain in the ass, okay? And the technology was making it less of a pain in the ass to survive. But religion allows you to bond with other people and have culture with other people, so you have a way that you can interact with other people. And this is to say, historically, the baker and the blacksmith might not have gotten along and may have hated each other's guts, but the baker still wanted the pans that the blacksmith made for him, and the blacksmith still wanted the buns that the baker made, but they didn't like each other, so they would find ways to get along, and religion is a part of that. Spirituality is a part of that. Philosophy is a part of that. Buddhism, for example, is a philosophy. It's not a religion. It's a philosophy. So if you're Buddhist, I don't really care. At least I know what you are, and you might not be part of my group. But if my group interacts with your group, I know how to interact with your group because I know what Buddhism is. Okay, this sort of thing is the idea. Okay, but up until 150 years ago, everyone everywhere used religion for what? To stay alive. That's what. Okay, there had to be some way to make sense out of life to everyone, and that's one of the things that religion can do for you. So I'm going to say that that's actually very, very important. But there's other reasons. We'll get to that. Anyway, let me just skip past. I pretty much I get into something here. This is kind of cool. So, if you're Hindu, go find other like-minded Hindus. If you're Christian, find other like-minded Christians. Buddhism, same thing. You could worship Greek or Roman gods for all I care. It's still going to help you. And there's reasons for this. If you're a recovering alcoholic or recovering drug addict that attends 12-step meetings, I'd suggest you go find others in recovery to get your group together with. And this is interesting because I'm contradicting myself here, because not everybody in the 12-step groups are of the same religion, yet they have a common understanding. So that's kind of what counts. They also have a method of communicating with one another that they practice on a regular basis as they go to meetings. They share openly, they share from the heart, and these are things that are important to be able to do with people in your group. Okay. Whatever you do, don't think your survival is solely dependent upon you. Okay, the common American boast is that I did it all myself, and that's completely false. You may have earned it all yourself, but you did not cut every tree to make every 2x4. You didn't mine the ore to make every nail. You didn't formulate every paint that was used in the house. Humans need other humans to survive, period. So you're going to have to find a group if you're going to want to survive. Okay. Even if you and and here's another thing. Let's say you find a a group, okay? So it's you and your spouse, and there's 11 other couples. So that's 24 people. Okay, even if you get along with all those people are going to have kids, and then eventually you're going to have kids. Some of these kids you're not going to like. You're still going to need to find a way to get along with them. So the way that the group is going to solve those problems needs to be mutually shared and mutually agreed upon, and usually that's done through religion or philosophy or some form of spirituality. There's a bunch of new age hippies out there. They can find ways to get along, and it's pretty weird, and I don't really like it, but I've seen it work. So great. That's something you can do. You could be a hippie, start a commune. Hey, whatever. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, you don't want to try doing it. It's obvious. Okay. So getting up past all that, one of the other reasons why I get into the religion thing is because of prophetic ability. Okay, this is to say in more modern terms, foresight. But I could also say that to see the future is to prophecy, and that while everyone can prophesy, some do it better than others, and only the very best get called prophets, you see. So I hope you get it. Let me go on here. The farmer knows when to plant and when the growing season will be over. The astronomer knows when the moon will be full and when such and such a comet will return. The investor knows when it's time to invest in a company to make money. The chef knows when the roast will be done. The prepper knew to prep. Okay, so this notion that you can't see the future isn't true. The tactics and techniques involved are very complex, and usually that's what religion is getting into. That's why it's all so bizarre, because how do you tell the future? Well, any way you possibly can. And usually it involves taking a snapshot of everything going on, or getting a picture of everything going on and seeing how it's all going to come together. So this is something that religion does, and this is something that if you're a prepper and you've been prepping, you've been doing this. You've seen what is going on today in the world coming, and you got ready for it. So, that's the thing. Pretty much everything you use your brain for is prophecy. It's just these days we say this person's smarter than the other one, and not this person knows prophecy better than you do. You see, it's a matter of semantics. So what I'm saying is, and the reason this is important is because you can have all the supplies in the world. If you didn't see something coming, you can still get blindsided by it and still get your junk knocked in the dirt. So you want to be keeping keen with what's going on. You don't want to be stressing over it, but you want to know what's going on. Like today I saw a video about how New York is making it more mandated, more legally mandated that people get certain medical treatments, even if they don't want to get that medical treatment. And you know exactly the medical treatment I'm talking about. Anyway, as far as the whole prophecy thing goes, there's something that they say in the LDS Church, which is that the order in which you do something matters. For example, it's commonly said, first, you grow up and get an education. Then you go on your mission, which is a rite of passage. Then you fall in love and get married, and then you have kids. If you do those things in any other order, it will be a disaster. Okay, so if you try to take any of those four things and put them in a different order, you'll see that they don't make sense. You can't be a newborn and go on a mission. That doesn't make any sense. How are you going to travel the world as an infant? That doesn't make any sense. And so therefore, everything else after that doesn't make any sense. If you grow up and get an education, go on a mission, and then have a child, but you didn't fall in love first, then that's going to suck, because then you got a kid with somebody you're not in love with, right? So that's going to, so you can do this with this thing I just said. The first, grow up and get an education, go on your mission. Then you fall in love and get married. Then you have children. You can switch those things around, and if you do them in any other order, it isn't quite going to work the same way. Okay, and the order that I gave them, those things that I said, those things, that's the order that you do them, because that's the best order to do them in. And that's the one that you're going to get. It's not going to guarantee that everything's going to work out, but if you do it another way, that is going to guarantee that it doesn't work out. Okay, so the same thing goes for survival. First, you acquire the skills and the materials needed. Then you find other like-minded people that have beliefs that are the same as yours and have a form of mutual assistance group and form a mutual assistance group. And then begin working together for survival. Then shit hits the fan and you survive, and then you rebuild according to your beliefs. So if you wait until shit hits the fan to get your materials together, you die. If you wait till shit hits the fan to find other like-minded people, you die. If you begin rebuilding prior to shit hits the fan, then you end up like Waco and get burned down by government agents, and you die. That's why order matters. And this is one of the things that you can get from religion is this sort of wisdom, okay? If you do not do things in the correct order, you will not get desirable results. So if you paint the wall before you have the drywall up, then you put the drywall up, then you don't have the paint on the drywall. It's underneath the drywall. It sounds so simple, but when it comes to like determining things like, well, should I plant this now or should I wait a week? Should I wait a month? Should I pick these veggies now? It's getting cold. Are we going to get a cold snap? You want every single bit of assistance you can get in making those decisions. And again, in the days of old, people used religion to do this. Okay, so even with my YouTube channel, I started it years ago and I only made one review of the Jetboil isobutane cooker that I posted. But I knew that if I did that, when I did that, then when shit hit the fan drew near, I could point out, hey, look, I've been at this a while. I knew back then that shit hit the fan was coming, and I got a video to prove it. So there's that. Then when I was living in Hana, I started in that movie pilot that I recently posted where my name credit was iJet King. And that way I knew when I returned to the mainland, I could truthfully say I am a king from Hawaii. A king returned from paradise. See, I thought that out. Then I joined MeWe, and I knew I didn't want to use my legal name, so I wanted to call my survival YouTube series on YouTube "Surviving Like a King," because that's one of my survival tactics as well. The philosophy that if one had what we have today 200 years ago, you'd be a king. And I always ask myself when things are really rough, I say, well, what would a king from the days of old do with what we have today in order to survive or get past this thing? It's a very good question to ask yourself. A king from the days of old would not be crying about any of the problems we have now. They'd just be like, well, geez, we could take all of this, do this, and we'd go out in the woods and then let these bastards, duke it out, or World War III or whatever, and that problem solved. Once they're out of the way, then we can rebuild. And that's pretty much my philosophy. Nobody's getting out of this. And that's because the order you do things matters. So it's kind of a funny thing here. It's kind of a catch-22. There is no way to develop the new technology and know the proper way to use it right away. So in the last 150 years, we've come up with all these amazing things, these very powerful things, but we didn't know how to use them correctly or what the outcome of using them would be. So therefore, we had to fuck it up, and we're at the point right now where it's so fucked up that shit hit the fan. One of the ways that shit's going to hit the fan, and one of the reasons why the powers that be are using this pissant, half-witted, lame duck of a bioweapon as an excuse to shut down the world economy and take away rights and privileges is because they know that the big weakness that humanity has right now is the electrical grid. So the electrical grid, we built the electrical grid. We were just, yay, we've got electricity, let's build everywhere. So we built everywhere and just totally forgot about the Carrington Event, which was a solar flare about 162 years ago that took out all the telegraph lines. They had electricity running through them. The solar flare hit. The electrical lines burned up, and so did the telegraph stations. So if that were to happen today, that means every major city would burn up across the globe all at the same time. So if that were to happen, then the people who are in power right now would lose power, and they don't want to lose power, so they're trying to put in what's commonly called a New World Order now, before that happens, and what they plan to do is they plan to exterminate about 95% of the human population. So that way they've got these small little groups of people that they can control in whatever way they have planned. And I'm sure they have a plan for it. But that's the whole thing. That's why I think that they're doing this right now, because it's been 162 years. These events happen every 100 to 150 years. So therefore, That's why this is going down, and that's why it isn't going to stop, and that's why they're going to keep doing these just horrifically evil things. If you've seen what's going on in Australia or Austria, or now even New York, they're trying to make mandating certain medical treatments mandatory. Yeah, shit hits the fan. All right. Well, I hope you get it. I hope you get what I'm saying here. And I think that's about enough for today. I've pretty much gives you an ample introduction to me and my type of thinking. People need a group of people to survive. They need the order in which you do things matters, and it requires a lot of thought and practice to get it right. People need a shared spirituality, religion, or philosophy that makes survival possible. This is called culture. The powers that be are causing the collapse of civilization, aka shit hits the fan, to avoid losing their power due to a Carrington event. In the next videos, I'll be covering what tools I have and how I use those tools for survival. I'll be covering various basic survival techniques like lighting fires, finding and treating water, food preservation, gear reviews, this sort of thing. I'll also be answering questions that I get in comments here on YouTube and questions I get from folks on MeWe. I recently posted a video on using a fire steel to ignite fat wood, and I have my first questions to answer about that video already. In the meantime, stay positive. Don't let anything get you down and depressed, as there are plenty of things going on that could do that. Get you all down and depressed, and you might just give up or make a stupid decision and not make it past shit hits the fan when it's going to be great. And it sure will be, because all the jerks and assholes will be gone because they're going to kill each other. Yeah, basically. Anyway, get out your gear. Get out there and practice living in the free, wild life of nature. And much aloha to you. Till next time. Aloha.